In April 1950, it so happened that I had started to read Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace, one of the 42 volumes at the Sarivon Library, where I spent the majority of my time when school was out. I was an avid reader, even though all of the books were in Japanese and Chinese characters, as there were no Korean books available because Japanese colonial government had forbidden learning Korean. I read Kant, Schopenhauer's The World as a Will and Representation. Of course, I did not understand much of the contents in view of the Chinese characters and words such as metaphysics. But I could not help my fascination and interest from the few parts I understood. I excelled in school, even receiving a special award from the Education Minister, Park Kon-young. I was selected to enter the Pyongyang Normal School as one of the 160 gifted students. My goal since age 11 was to become a doctor, discover a cure for cancer, and find a solution for world peace. I was certain that I would achieve these goals. I had a loving home, family, the best teachers, and their encouragement. I was so sure of my bright future that I was unshaken, undeterred, even as the machine gun bullets sprayed into my room, barely missing me on the fourth week of July 1950. On June 29, I was in the city of Sarivon, located about 75 miles south from Pyongyang. I was 16 and expecting my mother to arrive for my graduation in Sarivon Middle School. But she was unable to attend because the train stations had been bombed. As many people started walking on foot to their own destinations, the road was full of people walking with bundles on their backs and heads. I too was packing a bag to take home with me when suddenly, with a terrible noise, bullets ripped through the mud wall of the Korean traditional house where I was, and smoke rose from the floor, the bullets barely missing me. I picked up the cartridges, still warm on the floor, wrapped and packed them with the rest of my belongings. I still remember the machine gun bullets were made in 1942 in Japan, according to the writings on them. I left Sarivon for my home in Pyongyang, walking on foot for 3 nights and 4 days, sleeping with other travelers in an empty farmhouse or in the woods. We worked, sometimes in rain, and dried when the sun came out. I stopped at the roadside stream to tidy myself, washing my hands and face. When I came face to face with Kim, a student at Kim Il-sung University, working in the opposite direction to his home in Haeju, Gwanghae-do. In past, Kim took the same train as I during the weekends visiting home. On the train, sitting in the same seats across from me, smiling, we used to exchange light conversation about schools. After spending the night in farmhouse, another night in the woods, I was wet and drying in the sun, my hair disobeyed. I was very embarrassed at being seen in the state that I was. 19-year-old Kim too looked disabled and in need of shaving. For a moment, wordless, We just stared at each other, but we knew we must get on the road and hurry homeward. Kim went south to Haeju, and I went north to Pyongyang. Kim, holding his college blazer on his shoulder, stared at me for a long time and said, "After the war, at 25 o'clock, let us meet here," pointing at the ground between a tree and the stream where both of us were standing. I in my school uniform, Kim in his college uniform. We departed, each going in our direction, merging into the crowd. I picked some apples from roadside orchard, started to eat, when an old lady from nearby farmhouse came and offered me a boiled egg. It was timely, as I hadn't eaten since I left. After a day and a half of more walking, I saw at a distance a familiar horizon, which told me I am getting closer to home. I decided to tidy myself and stopped by a stream again. I washed, changed my blouse, and combed my hair to make myself presentable to my father and mother, to reduce their shock at seeing my state. My face was so dark with sunburn, I could not even recognize myself when I glimpsed my face in my small pocket mirror. Finally, arriving home, upon entering the familiar gate, I bowed and said, "Father and Mother, I have returned." Here I bought some apples and souvenir. My father, who was ill with cancer and laying on the wooden porch, raised himself up, surprised, and said with a rare smile, "So you found your way home?" While home, I volunteered in a local temporary clinic in neighborhood. Neighbors injured by bomb fragments came to a home for care. All I had was alcohol and mercurochrome to wash their wounds. Within 3 weeks of my return, my father passed away at Kangso, where he went to rest. I helped at home with chores, but with the increased bombing, people were leaving the city of Pyongyang. My oldest sister took my younger siblings with a 1.5-year-old baby to a Buddhist temple in the mountain for refuge. Mr. Kim, a friend of our neighbor, had stayed at our house overnight with 3 other people. They had come looking for families. Mr. Kim told my mother the next day he would help me and send me to school and return when the war is over. Thinking I might be safer from the bombing, my mother allowed me to come to South Korea with Mr. Kim. Her last words to me were, "Soul is cold, keep warm, stay alive, and do right." On December 3, 1950, I came to Seoul. Within 3 months, Mr. Kim died. I didn't realize until I came to South Korea that I had lost everything. I was now a refugee and an orphan. I hadn't even graduated from high school and had no skill to earn a living. I had no shelter or food to sustain my life. And so I decided to enter military nursing school in Busan. The impact of war was like a bomb that destroyed all I had hoped for. All of my life plans. I loved my family, my fatherland, and the world. I wanted to make a positive difference during this brief lifetime on earth. Even then, I knew life was precious. I had no time to waste. In 1956, while I attending Busan University and working at the same time through the invitation and insistence of a Methodist minister from Texas, I came to the US to continue my studies. Never a day went by without thinking of my family. I wrote letters to the Red Cross, embassies in China, Poland, Soviet Union, asking for my help, or help to find my family. I wrote letters to my mother in Pyongyang when I was attending American University in Washington, but they returned. In 1988, after many years of my searching and waiting, out of the blue, I finally received a letter from DPRK, North Korea, from the Office of the Assistance for Korean Phenomenon Abroad, saying that they had located my family and I may visit them at any time at my convenience. I couldn't believe it, not shocked. It wasn't even raining, but I put on my raincoat, went out for a walk in my neighborhood for blocks to digest the news. In May of 1988, I made my first visit back to Pyongyang to see my family after 38 years. I learned from my oldest sister that my mother had died within a month of my leaving, waiting each day for my return. I had made many visits to see my family until the new sanctions were imposed. My last visit to North Korea to see my family was in 2016. I have not heard from my family for 7 years. I feel I have lost my family again. With continued increasing sanctions, the trauma of this unending war continues. In spite of having lived and survived and succeeded in starting a new life and family in America, the stigma of being from North Korea provokes suspicion. I cope with this biases daily, compounding the personal trauma of war that is ever present with me. War destroys not only houses, buildings, railroad stations, and communities. War destroys hope and aspirations of the individual and all, replacing them with the horrors of war that after more than 70 years, time and memory amplify, not erase. Its legacy extends to my children and my grandchildren. I am close to 90. My time is limited. I have given my best to my adopted country, America, for 62 years as a citizen, a teacher, a nurse, business owner, a humanitarian, and taxpayer. But I have given so little to my own family, the source of my being here today. I cannot visit my own flesh and blood. I cannot visit the graves of my parents. I cannot even send a letter due to the sanction. As one of the oldest separated Korean American families, I ask my government to remove the sanctions, allowing separated families to reunite and end this ongoing war once and for all. Thank you.